is Dan with Gears and Gadgets. Now I was gonna make this a moto vlog, but the weather looks like it's possibly brewing up into something kind of nasty. Probably not a great idea for me to be moto vlogging as I'm trying to dodge debris blowing across the road possibly, or you know, riding into these dust storms. So I am going to pick this up back in the studio because, well, there I can kind of control things, but yeah, that weather out in the distance is something in the works here. So we're gonna try to just get home and beat this nonsense. So we will pick this back up in the studio. That's better. Okay, no, now that's better. I just went and ate dinner instead. Changed my clothes, here we are. So, this video started out as a, well, moto vlog. The weather wasn't cooperating, so here we are. And what I'm going to talk about today is the 2020 Street Glide. And what I did was, I was going to put a video together of just talking about what I think they should do with the touring bikes. I kind of covered that in my 2020 predictions. We're coming into the dealer show. It's coming up here in a couple weeks, actually. And one of the predictions I made, which I don't believe is going to happen, but I think 100% for the motor company needs to happen, is just retooling the entire touring line. And the reason why I think that these touring bikes really need a change, I think the touring bikes are long in the tooth. I don't think that, I know that. The 2006 Street Glide that came out was basically the first Street Glide. If you aren't a real motorcycle person or a real Harley fan, you'd be really hard pressed to identify a 2006 versus a 2019 Street Glide, and that's a problem. If you're going to scrape up the pennies to spend $30,000 on a bike, you want everybody to know that the bike you just bought is brand new. There's the flashy factor of that people want to show off that they just bought a new bike. So I thought to myself, what do I think would get people really amped up about a big change with Harley and just really supercharge those touring sales? Now, leave in the comments down below what you think of what I propose here, because I spent quite a bit of time on this, just kind of put together what I think would sell, and here is what I come up with. What I did here, and I'll show you the 2019 and then overlay mine, and I'll run that back and forth a couple times so that you can just sort of maybe identify some of the things that I changed. First of all, what I changed, the most noticeable, I really think they need to put passing lights into the actual fairing itself. I know when I bought my Heritage, one of the biggest things for me, it's safety. And I like the fact that on my Heritage I have the headlight and the two passing lamps. It's just I'm more visible to cars approaching. Millennials are super obviously concerned about safety. It's kind of the whole you live your life in bubble wrap kind of thing. I think that they're willing to ride motorcycles, but you have to add a few more things in there to get people thinking about the safety aspects of what it is they're buying. And there's been plenty of studies out there about the visibility with motorcycles in oncoming traffic. So I think it also looks awesome. I don't like when they have the brackets that just attach to the fork and it's like an afterthought, like, oh, here was a Street Glide and now we just slapped some passing lamps on it. I don't like that. I'm not a huge fan of that design cue. It just comes off as it's going into 2020. All of our tooling for, well, plastics, the fairing and stuff like that, they can stamp these things out and actually integrate them right into the design of the bike and just make it look better. In my opinion, I think it looks better that way. And I'll take you to a side view of this as well, and you can see I just stretched that fairing back a little bit. Now, doing that is really kind of more the, I guess, going towards the riding position of an Indian chieftain. When you test ride those, I've test ridden them before, everything's just kind of like right up at the rider, and that's really nice. I personally really like that. And if you stretch that fairing out a little bit, you do a couple things. It addresses one of my biggest pet peeves, which you cannot fit a modern cell phone in the little side pocket of the existing Street Glide. They're too big. They have these foam things you can pull out and kind of toss it in there. It won't shut. It's not big enough storage space. Now, by stretching that, you just open up some space in that fairing for additional storage, something I think needs to happen. I also tilted back the windscreen a little bit because it just makes it look a little bit more streamlined, aerodynamic, which is a great feature. Now people are going to say, well, if you do that, you're going to get more helmet buffeting. No, you're not, because you're going to add a power windscreen, and that windscreen is going to the windscreen is going to be at a nice aerodynamic angle, and part of its motor function would be that it'll stand itself up. So I think you can achieve that in a fairing that's just re-engineered. They have to retool the fairing and do that. So in my opinion, that whole fairing on that Street Glide just needs to be tweaked, add those passing lamps, make it a little bit larger as far as coming back to the rider, just a little bit more, but keep those lines pretty much the same and keep that styling of the Street Glide. Now, also, one of the biggest pet peeves I have with Harley-Davidson is the parts counter money grab, and I know a lot of people have this same concern. The fact that these bikes don't come with LEDs all the way around, going in even 2019, I feel like that's something they should have done. You have to give these bikes LEDs all around, and again, it's a safety factor. They're brighter, you're more visible. Buyers pay attention to that, and buyers don't want to be told after they spend $30,000 to go over to the parts counter and spend another $500 on LED upgrades. It's just not. It's not good business. In my opinion, those are the things that's making millennials, who are incredibly educated buyers, more so than any other time in our life, with YouTube and everything else you have to educate yourself. People know what the competition's offering, and that unfortunately for Harley-Davidson, the competition's offering more for less when it comes to these type of amenities. They have to do it. At the price point, they have to do it, or they have to come down in price. It's the only way I can really see it. I also, to anybody watching this, yep, I stole that seat right off the Chieftain because I rode it. I loved it. I think it's awesome. I think the big, huge plush seat of the current Street Glides just looks dated. The Chieftain has a little more like lower ride. This also helps achieve basically an easier bike to flat foot for shorter people. So I like that design element. So I stole that for this. Now, of course, I think Harley should do their own seat. I jacked that straight off of the Indian. I also extended underneath the seat the plastics underneath the Harley. I hate dead space. Dead space to me, it's just lazy engineering almost. The fact that you can just like stick your whole arm right through the center of that bike, there's nothing there. I think you need to create that as a plastic space, maybe even integrate some sort of storage in there. I don't know. I'm thinking like the Rivian, which is, if you're not familiar, a new electric truck that's coming out that took dead space in a truck and made it a storage space. Do something small like that. Start thinking about these things. I mean, it's the world we live in now. It's 2020. It's a $30,000 motorcycle when you're looking at the Street Glide Special. People want those little tiny touches, but yeah, they're gimmicky. I'm not going to say they're not, but people pay attention to that kind of stuff. Now, I also extended the saddlebags. I wanted to make the saddlebags just slightly larger, not really take away from the streamline of those stretch bags, but just bring them up to the rider just a little bit, and you can gain a little bit of space. I like the look of a little bit larger of a saddlebag. So that is aesthetically what I think the Street Glide should do, is just retool it a little bit, let people know that if you buy a 2020 Street Glide, this is what you get, and everybody on the road will know unmistakably that you just spent $30,000. Because look, buying motorcycles, it's a bit of a dick measuring contest. It's kind of what it is. Love it or hate it, it is. So the idea is, if you're going to spend the money, you want people to know this is a new bike, and the radio changing year to year isn't really enough for most people to care. Again, especially if you're trying to get a guy who bought a 2014 Street Glide, you're trying to get him to make a horrible financial decision and come into your dealership and maybe even roll negative equity into your new bike and keep moving bikes. That's the idea. You want to keep selling bikes, and that's what Harley has to do, is make things different and better so that people make those decisions to come in and upgrade their bikes, mobilize that base of buyers, and get them back to the dealership to open their wallets. It's what has to happen. I'm also going to say that these are the specs that I think Harley really needs to try to hit when it comes to these bikes. First of all, they've got to get them under 800 pounds. Right now, 836 pounds on the current Street Glide. special, that is. I think they got to get down to 795 pounds, do that with lighter weight materials. It has to happen. And it just is going to raise a lot of eyebrows that they took a touring bike and got it below that 800 pound mark. I think that's going to hit the market, and people are going to run with that and be very impressed with shedding that weight. I really believe all these bikes in the touring line, that is, should be liquid cooled. I still am on board with some of the other maybe soft tails lower down the line, or even all the soft tails just being air cooled, or the oil assisted cooled, which is what my Heritage is. But I do think all the touring bikes, they've got to be liquid cooled in order to compete with the other bikes that are on the market. I think that Harley's losing when it comes to what the other manufacturers are offering, and it's just kind of what it is. I think that you can still have all the greatness of a Harley, cool that motor down, and just make it an absolute pleasure in all riding conditions here in Arizona and all the way across the country for people riding. I really think they need to make that jump. A big thing and part of going into that weight savings is that monoshock. It has to go monoshock. I'm telling you, if you're watching this video and screaming at me that monoshock is horrible, I promise you that you probably haven't ridden one, and I'll take another step and say you probably haven't ridden a Chieftain. Those ride absolutely incredibly, and I'm telling you that monoshock is far superior. Harley needs to do that, and I hope to God that is coming down the pipeline. I think it's got to happen. Apple CarPlay came out in 2019. Awesome. Until you find out that you have to go to the parts counter and buy the WIM module, which is like $400 to activate it. That is just shouldn't even be something that I should have to say, but it's just like highway robbery. There should be zero expectation that you are going to turn around and go to the parts counter and buy something to activate that. I think that was bad on Harley's part. I hope they go away from that, because those are the kinds of things that are making millennials say, I'm not doing this. Again, people are really tight with their money nowadays, and when they find out, it's not even that they find out they have to go buy it, but it's just that feeling of just feeling like you just got ripped off, and I think a lot of people just feel that way. It's just the way it is. I think they have to include a little bit more in the electronics department as far as traction control, standard ABS. Stop making people pay for that stuff. It's just, I don't get it. And that's, again, part of why I think people are shying away from the brand in general. And then just getting into some of the things that I would call like more wants, things that I don't think they have to have in there, but things that I think that if they want to really be the best, and I expect Harley-Davidson, I expect the best. And if you're going to elevate yourself to that level, and really that's what Harley is they claim to be the best motorcycles, and they want to be the best motorcycles. They should want to do more. And part of that is telematics, I think, is, again, we're going to 2020. A lot of the information, and I've learned just on my Dynojet Power Vision, the amount of data that is available to be just seen on the dash is incredible. Just engine head temps and engine temps, the air intake temperatures, just all these parameters that I think people want to see that information. Whether they use it or not is a whole nother ballgame, but you already have the computer pulling all this data. Why not put it in a format where you have a page on the Boombox GTS where you can customize these gauges? Just give people that information, because I'm telling you, people want it. The information's there. It can't be all that hard to just make it available. And part of the telematics of that is create a Harley-Davidson app that is Bluetooth enabled, not something you have to spend $30 a month for the rest of the time that you own the bike, but just a Bluetooth enabled thing so you can offload that data from your last ride or whatever the case may be and have it available on your phone. And maybe part of that is an integrated dash cam on the bikes and something similar to what you see on some of these higher-end sports cars where you can offload dash cam footage of your ride. That stuff is like so cheap now. The dash cam I put on my bike was a couple $100. Harley-Davidson, with their buying power and their engineering, could probably throw something on a bike like that for $100, even if it's just a front-facing camera. I think it'd be kind of cool to start thinking that way at least and add stuff like that. I guess what I'm really getting at is I think Harley needs to focus on perceived value, and that's something they are really bad at right now. I'm telling, like, that's probably their biggest weakness is perceived value. if you go and look at an Indian, or if you go and look at a Gold Wing, the perceived value of that product, just spec sheet to spec sheet, is better. I mean, it's just they give you more for less, and Harley's kind of losing people on that. And they need to start taking some of these things from the higher trims, suck up their pride on all the profit they make, which is incredible, has to be insane, on the parts counter. And I'm not saying do away with the parts counter. I'm not saying do away with any of the stage kits or any of that stuff, but the people are still going to spend money on that kind of stuff, but stop cheaping out, really cheaping out on LEDs and stuff like that, or WIM and modules, just nonsense. The audible alarm for, my bike is an example of that. It has an alarm, but if you want it to make a sound, you have to actually go buy the speaker module to hook up. And nobody wants to spend $30,000 on a Lego set. They want to spend $30,000 on a complete product, and then maybe add a couple things onto it here and there. And that's just where I think Harley's losing people. So that is my rant. Really, it's just a rant on my 2020 Hope 2020 Street Glide special, what I think it should look like. Leave comments down below what you think. Again, if this is your first time tuning in, please click that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel. I am currently working on retooling my scheduling, coming up with a little bit more of a consistent format, so please stay tuned. My uploads have been really bad lately, and I will certainly be fixing that in the near future. Thank you to all my new subscribers. The channel is still just consistently growing. I'm very proud of that and very thankful for that. So thank you guys very much, and I will see you guys next time.